Hello, sports fans. Larry Eater here, Conversations with Larry. And the 126th Boston Marathon was awesome. How awesome was it? Well, I watched both broadcasts. Paul Swangard and Kara Goucher were fantastic. I really like how they interplay. They don't talk over each other. Paul's got just he's the voice of Hayward Field, been doing it for 3,000 years, and got a great sense of humor. I do enjoy him with Otto, but I really enjoy him with Kara too. Kara loves doing TV. She does her homework, unlike some other people who don't do their homework, and drives me crazy. And I get all the text during the thing, Larry, what the hell's going on? I don't pick these people doing the TV, so don't come after me. But Kara and Paul Swangard, rock on. The Boston Marathon was interesting because this is the first one in over 1,000 days, man. We haven't had we had a Boston this fall. And yes, it was lovely. Great race. Good stuff going on. But it wasn't Boston Marathon on Patriot Day. And since 1986, I think I've missed 3, including this year. The Boston Marathon, the week leading up to Boston, is a week when the entire running community gets together. And when I was doing the running network and we had, 30 magazines out there, I was everywhere. I met with every brand, went to the cocktail parties every night, got some walks in with people, and would really start the year off right with a week in Boston. And then being in the media room and covering the marathon with David Murphy and James O'Brien, doing the emotionless announcing during the event to try to be professional. I love Murphy and I love O'Brien. They're great guys. And the riders there, it's just a really fun event. And I'd be sitting next to Dave Hunter, and our friends from New England Runner were there, and it just was like old home week. The press conference is always a lot of fun. I used to love to go to the Tuesday press conference, but I got to tell you, several things that I thought were tremendous. Evans Chebet is in his 25th marathon, and he finally won the big one. He dropped a 4:27 mile and ran the 5K between 35K and 40K in 13:55. And he was with a field that had Jeffrey Kemwarer, had previous winners of Boston, had some total studs, and he broke them, man, really broke them. And he did it the old-fashioned way. He earned it. He looked fantastic coming across the finish. And when he hugged second and third, it was very heartfelt. And it was great to see Jack Fleming there, the new COO of the BAA. And I'm going to miss Tom Grilk, who has graced us with his presence for 3 decades plus at Boston, and now will become a consultant for the BAA. But we hope to get Tom on a future broadcast. He's just a lot of fun. And the BAA people are good people, and they're the stewards of the most important event in our sport, the Boston Marathon. The top American male, back in 7th place, was Scott Faubel. And Scott was the top American last time, too. Scored a PB, 2:08:52. He did not have a sponsor, which I think is absolutely, totally crap. He's being coached by Joe Bosshard. Joe has developed a portfolio of athletes that he has helped. And I'll tell you, this is how I judge a great coach. Joe, and I haven't got to meet him yet. I really want to get some time to do an interview with him. My observations are that athletes come to Joe, and he takes the time to figure out what makes them tick and gives them some suggestions, and he inspires them. Great coaches are confessors, cheerleaders, used car salesmen, scientists, and artists. Coaching is both an art and a science. Joe gets that, and he's inspired. He's inspired the athletes that are around him, and he truly inspired Scott. Scott went out in 1:04:26 at the half. He was in 22nd place. He ran his second half in 1:04:26 as well, the tougher half, and he went from 22nd to 7th. That's some serious running, because the Boston Marathon is a nightmare course to run. When I ran it in 1986, I ran PBs at 10 miles, 15 miles, and then I hit 17. And by the time I hit 20, there was nothing left in my body. And I remember talking to Bill Rogers afterwards, and Bill told me that on his 4 Boston wins, he felt like crap until about 16, 17 miles. And then he got in the hills and loosened up, and he was ready to roll. In 86 was the year that Rob DiCostella won. Rob was still is one of my heroes, a real class act, and fortunate enough to do a few training runs with him back in 1984. He was very patient with my constant jabbering, and I always appreciated that from him. But I've digressed, of course. The Boston Marathon is an iconic event. It is where marathoning in the modern era really began. What, about 1896 or 97? I'll have to ask Jack Fleming. And I think it's only missed one year. It was a relay. That was like 1914. But every other year, it's happened until the pandemic, and there were virtual races, which virtual races are like kissing your cousin. I guess they're okay for some people who just don't understand. Running Boston virtually, good for you, but it's not like having 500,000 people hollering your name as you're running down Boylston Street. So the Boston Marathon has just so many cool things going for it. On the women's side, and this is really interesting, 1972 was the first year that Boston officially accepted women. As we all know, there were several women, Roberta Gibb among them, who there were several who have run Boston before the official time. But 1972, so this is the 50th anniversary. And in this year, I think the women's race really shined. Paris Jepchircher, who is the Olympic champion, she has won. She'd won 4 races up till Boston, and now she's won 5. And she was in a gutty competition to the last 50 meters. Great television. It changed. The lead changed 3 times in the last mile. It was fantastic, and she ran 2:21:01, winning by 4 seconds. And so she has a winning streak that goes back to 2019. She is unarguably the finest woman marathoner in the world. And I look forward to seeing some of the big races later in the year, especially what will happen in Eugene and what will happen next fall in the fall season. Nell Rojas was the first American woman. Nell was the first American woman last year. She was 10th this year, ran a PB of about 90 seconds. She is coached by her father, Rick Rojas, the 1976 USATF champion in cross country. I remember Rick from the Colorado Track Club, and he and Shorter used to wear those striped shorts that Dolphin made. We thought they were totally cool. And Rick has great stories to tell. And it's really neat to see him coaching his daughter. And Nell is a great story. There's a lovely piece in Runner's World, another one in Fast Women, another one in Women's Running around her. Learn about this young woman. She is a very talented triathlete. I think that's one of her strengths. She did fabulous in Boston. Charlotte Purdue, the young woman from the UK who we've seen at Frankfurt and London and a few other places. She's number 3 on the Brit list all time now, behind Mara Yamochi and Paula Radcliffe. And I think that she ran really well. I mean, the Boston Marathon's a tough course. They say, oh, yeah, it's downhill. Yeah, it's downhill for 16 miles, then it's uphill, pal. And Amby Burfoot, the editor at Runner's World for a long time, and the 1968 winner of the Boston Marathon. I remember running with him back in the mid-1980s when I was still at Runner's World. And I would ask him, well, what kind of workouts did you do special for Boston? And he told me about doing downhill miles so he could practice running downhill. Ron Dawes, the 1968 Olympian for the U.S. in the marathon. He was 3rd in the Olympic trials in 68. they had the trials, I believe, in New Mexico, Taos, I think, at the time. Ron Dawes was a legendary Minnesota runner from the Minneapolis area, and did a book called The Self-Made Olympian, which is one of my favorite books of all times on training. He got me into Arthur Lydiard and showed me how to do miles, lots of miles without getting injured. But Ron Dawes also talked about learning how to run downhill well. And to be a good Boston Marathon runner, you've got to do that. Speaking of great Boston Marathon runners, Des Linden. Des was 13th overall woman. She ran 2:28:47. She was third American. And she was also busy as can be over the weekend. And I believe if she actually has a weekend where she can just allowed to be mellow for 4 or 5 days and gets the training that she wants in, I think she can run 2:23, 2:24 still. Josh Cox, her manager, and as many remember, former American record holder at the 50K, 2:13. Was it 2:13 guy? Yeah, because he did that in Chicago. I remember he negative split it. I think he went out 107, 106. But Josh is a manager. He's got a great group of athletes, and Des is one of his athletes. And Des is one of the most well-loved athletes in the sport. I tell you, if I put something up like Bourbon is Whiskey, Larry, one of my, great faux pas caught on ESPN, I get 50,000 impressions in a heartbeat. And we put up Des's dog Atlas when she wished him an early happy birthday. And I think 10,000 people dug that. So, Des, we love you. Continue doing what you're doing. Congratulations on your new job as chief running advisor at Brooks. Very savvy move for Brooks with one of the most popular athletes in the sport. Another heads up, CJ Albertson. CJ was the third American male, ran a PB of 2:10:23. He's the head track and cross country coach down at Clovis Community College in the Boondocks in lovely California. I had coached at junior colleges in California, absolutely loved it. It was probably the finest 6 years of my life. My guy was little, living in Los Altos, and just was fun. I miss coaching with my buddy Joe Mangan. But CJ, he led for a good part of the early race. If he could run a little more tactical, I can see him getting down in the low 209s. He's got the wheels. He's got the strength. He needs someone to talk to him a little bit about racing tactics. And again, it's not a real criticism. It's someone who looks at this guy and goes, yeah, he can run a lot faster. The guy's got wheels. The difference for Scott this year was probably Joe Bossard telling him, this is how I suggest you running the race. Because the way I understand Joe isn't tell people to do things. He suggests it. That's what a good coach does, and they prepare you. But then you have confidence. I remember a conversation with Kara Goucher, and Kara told me that before her best races, she was confident in her training, and she knew she'd done everything, so she didn't have to worry. And when I've heard athletes say that, that's when they're going to run really, really well. Boston had about 28,564 accepted entrants, a little under 26,000 started the race on April 18th. And by 5:30 p.m. on the 18th, 25,600 had finished. So about a 98.2% finish rate. That should be expected because, quite frankly, Boston's the toughest race to get in the country. Come on. You got to qualify for it. And right now, the average is you got to be 7 minutes faster than your age qualifying time. Think about that. For me, back in the old days, I had to go under 2:51, and I did that, I think, 3 times. It's really a status symbol among marathoners. The expo was very well attended, per my keen observers there. And the expo at Boston is kind of like, a former Nike president called it a third world bazaar, I believe. But the thing is about it is runners are geeks. They will spend, and serious runners will spend $300 on a pair of running shoes. But by God, if they can get a pair of shorts for $5, they're going to do it. That's why apparel is such a tough gig in the running biz. The guys at Tracksmith, I hear, are just cranking though. I had some friends out running on the Charles over the weekend, and they weren't, stalking anybody, but they told me they saw a lot of Tracksmith product out there on new runners as well. So Tracksmith is doing it. Good job for them. And the brands that are staying close to the sport, Adidas sells out of everything. They literally have to fly stuff in. I remember it's got to be 7 or 8 years ago, there was a product that someone put the wrong year on, and Adidas had to get it redone, ship it overnight, and they sold out on it. The Adidas jackets I see all over the world for Boston. It's amazing to me, but it's why shouldn't it be? It's the most important marathon in our sport, and the BAA stewards it, but the sponsors like Adidas, John Hancock, and some of the other folks that are involved really do a great job. And it's great to see the sport thriving again. Boston is back, baby, and it's back in the spring. There was something in the news about, and I'm just finding out about this now, that police uniforms were stolen in the Boston area about a week before. My guess is our favorite security folks in the U.S. were quite busy checking that stuff out because 213 is not going to be forgotten by anybody. And I don't forget it either. I was there. I should have been sitting in the stands. I still have the credential for it right near where the bombs went off. My hotel was the Charles Mark. Couldn't get in there for a day and a half. My son actually flew in and charmed Boston's finest and some FBI guys into letting him get my passport and my clothes out of the room. And yes, Adam, I will always make sure that before I leave on Boston Marathon Day that I have my bags packed in the room ready to go. But those are some of the memories that I had of 13. And I was in the press room with James O'Brien when everything went awry. And I'm glad they did not this year. And I'm glad to see 25,500 Boston marathoners adding their names to the long line of runners who have run Boston. And so I have been going now for a while. Yes, Boston Marathon, 126. Awesome. Great job, BAA. Great job, Adidas. Great job, all the other sponsors. Thanks to our friends at Brooks for supporting us and our coverage over the weekend. That means a lot. Sponsors let the world go round. And thank you for watching Conversations with Larry. Thanks to Mike Deering, our creative manager and our production manager at the Shoe Addicts. The Shoe Addicts manage our video and our podcast. And really, Mike's job is to try to keep me on time and tell me, when I'm driving him crazy. So, Mikey, thank you. Run, jump, throw today. Tell someone you love them. Stay safe.